Yes. Oh, yeah. And the geometry is equally, if not more important. You're probably
But
definitely
but
right on that.
when you start layering different rocks or whatever, different materials, then you get capacitors and all this kind of stuff happening.
And
Oh, is my sister here? Hang on.
sorry, I thought I had muted myself. This image is what the LiDAR
I
shows.
shall be back in 1 minute.
Okay, no worries. Under the Bosnian period, this is what the Bosnian pyramid looks like under the mountain or under all of the layers of dirt that hasn't been exposed. No, that was the Bosnian pyramid. This one right here. Oh, now we're getting into golden tablets. All right, that is the end of that part, but I have something else preloaded while we are still on topic, and that is first a little bit of Michael Tellinger's stone circle work and all of the layers of terraces in South Africa and the sound resonance that comes out of these stone layers and all of it that I will be sharing right now. And then we will finish off with some questions as soon as Campbell is back.
Them together. And also notice that weird kind of spider's web effect that goes away from the circle. No stone circle stands alone, even though it might look on photographs that the stone circle is on its own. If you look carefully, you'll see the hidden spider's web effect or the channels that connected them to the other stone circles. You'll see those hidden beneath the soil around the circle. There you can see the channel at the top connecting the stone circles. You can see the extreme age and the erosion of these structures. Obviously, much destruction has been done by town planning, town development, farming, roadworks, and that's really mostly where the destruction happens. There are huge parts of South Africa where if you fly over in a helicopter or with a drone these days at sunrise or sunset, there are vast areas that you can actually see many of these structures hidden under the soil. But when the sun is at a very low angle, it shows it up beautifully. You realize that there are vast areas that are just simply covered by these stone structures, but we can't see them. They don't even stick out of the soil anymore. And these channels, you can see channels that cover entire mountains with these stone structures all connected to each other. There's another great example of a channel running over there into some weird hexagonal ruins and structures, cluster of hexagonal cells. This is all not far from my house, actually. When we sit on the balcony at Stone Circle or at the Ubuntu office, that's what you look at. The mountains around us are covered in all these structures. That's why we are located there. And the other mystery is the vast number of agricultural terraces, 450,000 square kilometers and more of agricultural terraces. Keep in mind that all the history books tell us that Southern Africa was a sparsely populated part of the world. Apparently, nobody lived there. Until about 1,000 years ago, when the Bantu tribes eventually made it down to where they live today. Up to that time, nobody lived there. There was some Bushmen, hunter-gatherers that used to roam around, but that was it. Well, the 450,000 square kilometers of agricultural terraces clearly tell us a different story. So who built those terraces, when they were built, when were they built, and what were they used for? Were they growing food? Were they doing something else? And how many people were they feeding? And what happened to all those people that they were feeding? These terraces cover entire mountains. When you start seeing them, you suddenly see them everywhere. And the Google Earth images give you a very interesting idea of how widely spread they are as well. Again, South Africa, Zimbabwe, there are parts of Zimbabwe that it's almost impossible not to see these terraces. It's unbelievable. Again, this is not far from my house. This is the entire side of the mountain is just covered in these, and it goes on until you eventually hit either forestry or some farms that have developed farming or so forth, and then it obviously disappears. And the other doors and entrances to these stone structures. And that obviously immediately excludes dwellings for people or dwellings for animals. So whenever you read in the very, very naive history books that tell us that these are dwellings for migrating tribes or for their animals, this is clearly a very ill-researched author that put that down. This has got nothing to do for dwellings for animals or people. Archaeological drawings all the way from 1939 show us some of these clusters, these stone circles with no doors and entrances, and you can see how they're clustered together. In many areas, you can see some of these clusters, and often they're actually carved on rocks. Sometimes you see these carved on stones when you walk among the stone ruins. That's even that's truly boggled my mind. It's like, what came first? That they first carved the stuff out, and then they lay it out, or they first lay it out and somebody came and carved it on a rock as a sort of latecomer architect or town planner or somebody trying to document what they discovered there on a rock. It's just spectacular. And sometimes these stone circles are concentric circles with no doors and entrances. And then you start realizing that there's a lot more to this that meets the eye, and obviously they were used for some very specific purpose. The flagship, obviously, as you may know by now, is none other than Adam's calendar. Well, that name, just so that you know where the name comes from, when I first met Johann Heine in 2000, I opened it up, cleared it out, and found this tunnel that went into the darkness. And the tunnel was described to me to be paved all the way around, underneath, and paved all the way around, something like this. This is not the tunnel, but I found, so you can just imagine it. It wasn't, when they found it wouldn't have been beautifully backlit for a photo opportunity. So he says when they found it, they walked in there and they're obviously very nervous because this is like, what the hell is this doing here? And several meters into the darkness, they stumbled upon one of these facing them in the dark. And he said, this man told me that they got such a fright, they just turned around and got out of there as quickly as they could. And they never, ever told anyone about this until he told me about this. And then 3 months later, he died. So I'm glad that I listened to the old man. Brings us to the question, what are the stone ruins all about? Are you guys tired? Do you want to, I'm not sure which of this I'm going to have to cut out, but I'm getting tired myself. But so I know it's much too long. It's already 9:20, so I'm going to about half an hour to go, and we'll be out of here. So,
hello, sorry about that. I have to jump. I have to go and have dinner with my parents before I jump across the country. So I'll let you all continue. Have an awesome time with Bernie, and I'll catch you all soon.
All right, brother. Good day. Much love. And I will keep this going for about 10 or 15 minutes of explaining these stone circles here.
Sounds good. All right. Stay awesome, everyone. See ya.
Ta-ta. Love you. Blessings to your parents, Campbell. All right. We are at the 1 hour 50 minutes mark. So let us finish this awesome explanation of Michael Tellinger coming up about the stone circles and how the research and documentation of the crazy energy they've gotten coming out of it.
Of the sound frequency that comes out of the earth at that specific point. That's what this is all about. And some of these cymatic, like sand on a metal plate, but now these are stones, right? Some of the structures are actually very distinct magnetrons. And of those flower shapes, every time you see a flower-shaped stone circle, it means they actually built an ancient giant magnetron like this. Magnetrons that can cut metal in a split second. And I asked 2 magnetron scientists, how much energy would a magnetron 40 meters in diameter generate? Remember that a tiny magnetron can create so much energy in a laser beam that cuts metal in a split second. I mean, it literally just melts the metal. And the answer was that a magnetron that size would create more energy than all the power plants on Earth together combined. We have thousands of these magnetrons in Southern Africa, thousands of them. So these guys were generating so much energy. It's insane. And we know this because we measured it. We measured the sound frequencies, the electromagnetic fields, the loudness in decibels. And it's just insane what's coming out of these stone circles. I'm not going to bore you with that because it's just, it's getting late. Adam's calendar is the most powerful of all these ancients of these stone circles. Adam's calendar is actually much, much more powerful. It's as if they all seem to be sending their frequencies to Adam's calendar, and that's like the collection point for all this, the energies created by all these millions of stone circles. That's what it seems like. I can't say it is, but that's what it seems like, because the frequencies there were just ridiculous. Beyond 375 gigahertz coming out of Adam's calendar at the site. And electromagnetic fields that run horizontally and then vertically between the two stones in the middle. What we have at Adam's calendar is a very definite toroidal effect. And it's alive even today because we measured it. And that reminds us that the stones that ring like bells are what? They're just crystals. They're very, very high in crystalline substance. Very rich in quartz and silica. And remember, silica carries memory. Quartz carries memory. You can store virtually infinite amount of information and knowledge in quartz crystals. And this is why they don't put them in our computers, because that would make the computer industry obsolete. That you buy a computer once and never again. And that's what we're going to do in our Ubuntu communities, build bloody supercomputers. So, because we know how to make them. So when you look at ancient structures built out of stone, you realize that these guys knew exactly what they were doing. They understand that stone...
Sorry, just pausing it to state that magnetrons are what's used in lasers to focus and condense the different lights into the actual laser beam. So these would be sonic ones, quite intense.
Is the tool that carries with it, in it, information, storage capacity. It's an energy source. And that's why they used stone, not because they were stupid, because they were very, very smart. We're the dumb ones, but we're catching up quite quickly. So what's very obvious now is that all these ancient structures, from the pyramids, Borobudur, etc., are all ancient machines. They were giant machines built out of stone, crystalline substance, to create or to perform specific functions. It's just the function that we haven't figured out. What were they built for? What were they supposed to, do? And this is why they are aligned with the movement of the sun. Because we always amazed, look, this is aligned with equinoxes and solstices and all this. And we think, because they worship the sun. Oh, no, stupid. This is our stupid way of imagining that the ancients were stupid. They built this machine because the machine was aligned with the sun, because the sun is the activator of these machines. When the sunrise equinox over there and the first sun beams come down this passage and hit the standing stone, which is a crystal, you know that because all stones have crystal in them. So it's like hitting enter on your computer. Bing, it switches the machine on, and the machine does whatever function it's supposed to do until the sun moves over there, and then the beam comes to another passage, and then hits the sun, the light and the sound of the sun beams or sunlight hits another stone, and it makes the machine either stop whatever it was doing or perform some other function. And this is why they are aligned with the movement of the sun. So they work whether they're being operated or not. We don't have to sit there and wait and keep making it work. It works on its own. It's powered by the sound of the earth and activated by the movement of the sun. I mean, it's bloody brilliant. It's so simple. And now we're figuring this out, and we know that the energies are still there, because this is a photograph taken of the pyramids, and there's still huge energy coming out of the pyramids. Even the symmetrical patterns coming out of Stonehenge, although Stonehenge has been completely reconstructed, there's still very powerful symmetrical patterns coming out of Stonehenge that tells us that its original structure was very specifically created as a resonating device, an energy device. And now we get to the very exciting Earth grid that seems to connect all these ancient sites on Earth. By now, you should know that this is a magnetic grid. It's not just ley lines or some fancy, it's actually very specific energetic patterns that are created by the resonance of the earth and the magnetic fields that it creates. And the ancients seem to build all these ancient sites on these nodal points and very powerful points on these magnetic grids. And this is an ancient Sumerian text that actually tells us a lot of very important information. This is a real text that comes from the Shoyan collection. And it says, in the distant days, in those days after destinies had been decreed, after Un and Enlil had set up regulations for heaven and earth. I mean, regulations for heaven and earth. And Enki, the exalted knowing God, by the rules for heaven and earth, the fixed rules, he set up cities. It seems to tell us that there was some sort of a fixed energy grid in the sky, heaven, and the fixed energy grid on the earth. And based on the energy field in the sky and the earth, they set up the cities on earth on these specific nodal points. And then David Wilcock several years ago discovered that the emblems of the Space Command and the Air Force and so forth in the USA refer to the rules. And they have these bands around the earth, these white bands with these little delta shapes on them. And they refer to those bands around the world as the rules. And they say there's some sort of energetic field around the world. They don't know where it comes from, but it's always been there. Some sort of energetic field up in the sky that this same Sumerian text seems to refer to. They built the cities according to this energetic grid. And here we have the same rules. Read there. It says, the fixed rules, by the rules for heaven and earth, the fixed rules, they set up the cities. And here we have the fixed rules in the sky on the military and Air Force logos. And my friend Paul Gravenstein in South Africa, who's a remarkable guy, but we don't have time for me to talk about him. He actually measured these rules or these energy grids in the sky. He phoned me out of the blue and he was freaking out. He said, I don't know how to tell you this. I don't know who else to tell, but I picked up this bloody energy grid that's up in the sky. It's just everywhere. It's like a matrix. It's like it consists out of ones and zeros. It's like a binary code, powerful energy field up in the sky. And he said he sent up a few energy beams or these devices to try and break it. He says it breaks it momentarily and it instantly reforms. You cannot destroy it. He says you can't break it. It's indestructible. And I just realized that all this ancient stuff that we're dealing with, just like I said, these ancient machines are just advanced technology on a gigantic scale. These obelisks in Egypt, they ring like bells. If you listen to them, they they ring like bells, just like those stones in my museum. And when you go into these temples in Egypt, you know, we told that they were built for this and offering. It's all nonsense, offering and praying. It's just too many pillars, not enough space. When you look at them from this angle, you realize that this is just something very different. And all those pillars clustered together, why would they build them like that? And then the more I looked at it, the more I realized, now inspired by realizing that the stone circles were powerful energy generating devices, suddenly seeing aerial photographs of these temples in Egypt, I realized that they weren't temples, but they were actually templates. That we're actually looking at gigantic energy circuit boards on a gigantic scale that we could never have imagined. It's just beyond our imagination. The scale that these guys were building things on is something way out of our perception because we just don't have enough money to do that. And macro processors, gigantic micro processors become gigantic macro processors. You know, and here we are told that these were places of worship, and then this is where the people lived. No, these are giant bloody macro processors, and that's part of the circuit board. You know, it's what it is. And you can start seeing that the pyramids were the same thing, giant powerhouses, creating huge amounts of energy. And just, you know, you start seeing things and recognizing how all this fits into ancient history. Saksai Huaman is also just a giant circuit board. When you look at images from the air, you realize it's just a giant circuit board. It's not a fortress on top of a mountain. to ward off marauding crowds and guys on horses and spears. No, it's a giant circuit board. And Borobudur in Indonesia, I mean, look at this. This is just insane. It's like just by looking at it, you see it actually resonating in front of your eyes. It's actually moves. And look at the top of Borobudur. That doesn't tell you that these are energy generating devices shooting stuff into the sky. So all of these ancient temples and structures somehow were built, or many of them, to generate energy and shoot it up into the sky. So it seems like these are the devices that seem to keep this energy grid up in the sky. And possibly this is a matrix that keeps us enslaved and dumbed down and unaware of what's going on outside of our own planet. What is actually out there? What are we looking at when we look up at the sky? As I said, I no longer believe anything that NASA shows me. And it seems that the human sound was actually the source of the energy that holds up the matrix in the sky. Because you find these beautiful amphitheaters attached to what used to be these circuit boards. So they get a bunch of people into these amphitheaters, get them excited, they make a lot of noise, and they channel that sound into the circuit board. It activates the machine and it starts to make a noise or whatever and shoots the energy up into the sky, upholds the matrix. There's beautiful amphitheater, beautiful resonating pillar of a row of pillars that used to feed into the circuit board. And so it goes. There's another one. The circuit board was on top of the mountain, and the source code for it was the amphitheater on the side. Here's another amphitheater right in the middle of a circuit board. This is in Algeria, North Africa. And since 2015, this shows you, I should update this. Nothing has changed in 2017. The templates and temples have just become churches. And if you look at the tops of churches and mosques, they just have cones, these cones that face the sky, that capture the sound and the energy of the people in the church. Look at those cones facing the sky. It's just spectacular. Capture the sound and the energy of the singing and the clapping and the fear and the anxiety, and especially these ones here. This is the mother of them all. And then business centers and cities, they're just designed to channel all the sound and energy up into the sky. Somehow nothing has changed. We seem to continue putting all this energy, the city grids are like giant circuit boards, generating huge amounts of noise, huge amounts of energy, and strangely enough, all being connected by these channels called highways that never stop making a noise, just like the stone circles. We never stop making a noise. And now I understand what Morpheus meant when he said that people are the source of energy. It makes a whole different kind of sense to me now. For whom and why, I don't quite know, but it seems that we're the energy source that keeps this matrix or this energy field around our planet or up in the sky. And that brings me back to the deception that's been woven for us over thousands of years, and especially the last few hundred years, and this whole thing of gravity and the reality that we find ourselves in. You know, Isaac Newton had almost no knowledge of magneticism. He actually mentions that he didn't understand it, and therefore he didn't write about it. If he only understood magneticism, he would not have come up with the crap that has been shoved down our throats. Gravity doesn't exist. It's all an aspect of magneticism. But you can't say this at any institution. We observe it, we can't explain it. It's called gravity. It just holds everything together. And it's there to support some very, very important philosophies that have been shoved down our throats about the world that we find ourselves in. In fact, Coulomb describes gravity as an electric phenomenon. And it's very eloquently explained and very easily explains all the activities around us, especially supporting the whole toroidal structure of our reality. Gravity is much easier explained and explains all aspects of our reality through magneticism and not through this invisible, undefinable thing called gravity. Sound creates magnetic fields, moving magnetic fields create electricity, everything's affected by magneticism, sound, and resonance. And therefore, gravity is a consequence of sound and magnetism. And this is why it should be called the magneto-electric universe and not the electromagnetic universe. Even the precessional wobble of our planet. Remember, we talk about the precession of the equinoxes, this 26,000-year wobble. Even that can be explained with magneticism, because magnetic fields have their own precessional wobble, like is explained here. It's spectacular how suddenly everything changes in our reality. And we can start looking at the world we find ourselves in very, very differently. In 1887, there was a very important experiment that was performed, and I'm almost finished here, people. So you can just relax. This is the home run. This just blows my mind. Okay, and in 1887, these two brilliant scientists, and they were pretty much pushed out of our knowledge pool, out of our psyche. Michelson Morley performed what became a very important experiment, because until then, all scientists throughout the ages were obsessed with the ether. It was called the ether. The ether, the breath of creation, what holds everything together, what holds creation together, what holds the planets in place, and so forth. And it was called the ether. And they were obsessed with the ether, and they couldn't quite understand what the ether was. They had all kinds of definitions for it. If only they understood that it was vibration and resonance. That's really what they were describing, was the ether, is vibration and resonance, the breath of the creator that holds everything in perfect harmony and coherent, resonant harmony. So Michelson-Morley experiment was performed to prove the existence of the ether. And they wanted to prove that the earth moves through the ether. Well, they did two very important things. First of all, they couldn't find the ether. They couldn't prove that the ether existed. And they did this with sending out light beams in perpendicular directions, and they were measuring the movement of the light bouncing back, and they found there was no movement. I'm giving it to you very, very basic English, so it's easy to understand. You can go and research this yourself. And what came back is that there was no movement, there was no deflection, nothing. So the conclusion was that the earth is not moving through space. Therefore, the ether does not exist. So I'm not worried about the ether too much, because by now we understand that it's resonance and sound. But the most important thing that they showed is that the earth does not move through space. And as we sit here in this room right now today, there is no scientific evidence whatsoever that has been proven beyond any shadow of doubt, other than the evidence that we've been shown by NASA or the other space agencies. By now we know who they are and who controls them. There's no scientific evidence that the earth actually moves through space. I told you I'm going to push you beyond some of our capacity, break down the walls of our own resistance. This has really shocked me, and I no longer believe anything. Even Mika Koku says, Michio Kaku, says that there is no scientific evidence presented today that tells us unequivocally that the earth moves through space. What the hell is this all about? What it does tell us that ether has been replaced by the particle physics universe. And we can start seeing the agenda that was put in place a few hundred years ago, starting with the concept of gravity that replaces magneticism. Then we start seeing the discovery of the electron in 1897, where J.J. Thomson discovers the theoretical particle, the electron. Never proven to exist, but the theoretical particle suddenly becomes a reality. And a few years later, let me remind you, do you see anything physical in the picture of the electron? No. And this is why people like Nikola Tesla and Ed Leeds-Kalnin's comments, and even Albert Einstein and many others about the electron and that whole agenda of replacing the ether of creation with particle physics. Particle physics very quickly replaces the ether, because that's something they didn't want to get us sucked into. And suddenly Rutherford comes with his atomic model in 1909, 1911, and we are still stuck with the same bloody bullshit atomic model that was presented by Rutherford. And that, quite frankly, if you go and look at that experiment, that atomic model experiment, I'm sorry, I read it, I've looked at that over and over again. It is so naive, it is so stupid. And it can be so quickly and easily explained with magnetic fields. Everything that Rutherford experienced and reported on with his experiment could be very simply explained with magnetic fields and toroidal fields. And then by the time Einstein released his theory of relativity, that was the final death knell in the ether, or the theory of the ether, or as we call resonance and frequency. What's even more interesting and important is that the many experiments that have been done with the cosmic background radiation over the years have brought back some very, very interesting results. And Max Tegmark from MIT, in The Principle, I don't know if you've seen the documentary called The Principle, very clearly tells us, and he's the guy that drove that experiment, they found that from our perspective, the Earth is the center of all of creation. This is not popular in mainstream science, and yet this is what the most mainstream science results are telling us, that from our perspective, the Earth is the center of the universe. Not only that all the other observable galaxies and solar systems seem to exist in layers moving away from Earth as the center of the universe. Do with this information what you want. What I'm going to bring you back to is that everything is connected through a fractal nature of resonance that creates magnetic fields and toroidal fractals throughout all of creation. The atomic models, the quantum theory, all of that stuff can be very easily explained with the stuff that I shared with you, with sound, resonance, and magneticism. What happens is that the more questions we ask about this, the more mysterious are the things we find. And this is why I call this presentation Exploring the Nature of Our Reality, and really pushing the boundaries of our own capacity to tolerate new information. Because this certainly has shaken my reality. And I no longer believe anything I'm told by any university professor anywhere, because they're all lying. And yet, Max Tegmark gave us some very interesting information. What we do with it is what matters most. What do we do with all this knowledge? Because we can't affect what happened in the past, but we certainly can affect tomorrow morning when we wake up and we enter the world and we share our knowledge and information with others. And this is why I believe that we're the ones we've been waiting for, and we are co-creating a new reality. Now that you know how powerful your thoughts are, how powerful every word you write, powerful every message you leave for somebody on your cell phone, how every email you send, how powerful all your communication and all your thoughts are, you realize how quickly we can co-create a new reality for ourselves. Because all of this positive stuff, the positive thinking, the positive talking, the positive co-creation of a new reality for humanity that is filled with prosperity and abundance is right here. We are creating it as we speak it and as we think it. No one can stop that. It's up to us. And the more people say it, think it, speak it, imagine it, the quicker we're going to create it. And we are more enslaved now than we've ever been before, but with this enslavement comes the absolute understanding of how important it is to liberate ourselves from this enslavement. And it'll require a whole new kind of thinking, because we cannot solve the problems that were created for us with the same kind of thinking that created the problems. So our system is broken. It cannot be fixed. We need a whole new kind of system to get out of this mess. We've been born into the slavery. We now understand it. We've grappled with it. It's okay. The fact that we get it, we understand it, we can now do something about it. And remember,
Hey, my name's Bob Greenyer, and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So in this presentation, I wanted to decode the last part of the picture that Nikola Tesla, in my view, clearly staged when he was promoting his weapon to end all wars in approximately 19. Hey, my name's Bob Greenyer, and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So in this presentation, I wanted to decode the last part of the picture that Nikola Tesla, in my view, clearly
of March 2023. That should probably read the 19th of March. Across the center and with the leaders here offset, but feeding across the main.
Sorry about that. I posted the full link in the live chat for the Michael Tellinger. I was just trying to play some of Bob Greenyer's most recent work with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. Absolutely great stuff where he's been decoding the geopolymer of the Great Pyramids of Giza and proving without a shadow of a doubt that it is both geopolymer as well as tens of thousands of years old, and putting the science behind it and connecting the respectable real science community with actual real archaeology and discovery around the world. I'm going to play a couple minutes of it, and then I will post the link, and we will cut this off at 2 hours and 20 minutes here. Thank you, everybody, for being here today for the stream, and hope you're all having a blessed day and week. And on that note, here's a few more minutes of Bob Greenyer.
Main axis here is two vortices, but at 90 degrees to these vortices. And I just thought, probably that the stonemasons might be good enough, reasonably, to create some quite complex pieces of stonework. Okay, all right. So I'm just putting it out there because when you see these things, you have to recognize them for what they are. And the other thing is that I've got a lot of beautiful images that we can use, and they will be publicly available. This island was trading with Egypt, and at one point they were handed a stele. I actually have the image on my phone, and I don't have it available to share, but I'll share it on the blog afterwards. Actually, it's one of the other photos I took. But anyway, it's a stele, much like the one of the Assyrian god, where you've got the headdress of the sky gods and the flying disc of the sky gods, and then the kind of like tuning fork type thing, and it goes down. But it's also got the classic disc with the two wings and the tail. Again, another representation of this so-called flying disc. And this stele, the cuneiform on the side, it's in apparently a German museum, and they have a clone in Larnaca in the museum I went into. And what it is, it's basically a thank you note from the Assyrian king for the however many it was, the 7 or 12 or 13 or something kings of Cyprus, pledging their allegiance to Samaria or to the Assyrian lands or something. If that's the case, then there was a deep ties between these nations. So it's not just that they had war for and with the pyramid. It was over the pyramid, and it was using the pyramid. Apparently, this is according to Sitchin's translation. And literally, he says, in those slots where I'm in the pyramid, I'm going, something's been taken from there. And I took that video and I shared that with you a couple of presentations ago. Apparently, there is an argument that something has been removed from there. And so what happened, according to Sitchin's translation of the cuneiform, was after this battle, they went in and they took stock of what was in the pyramid, and they literally disassembled parts of it. So my theory that it was literally sabotaged, it actually would appear to have a historical document that supports this hypothesis. Okay, so this is all news to me, and so there we go. That's what it said, and yeah. So apparently, apparently there were other things removed, and I actually have images in the antechamber video pictures that I took where it looked a bit like something was stripped out of there. I don't know, but I can definitely say it looked a bit sus that there was something in that chamber, and it was in the grand gallery. And when I started overlaying the sacred geometry as derived from the actual Lena research, it pointed to this slot being absolutely in the exact perfect place for the sort of golden ratio spiral to be excited. And that's as it was. The other thing is that he talks about the primal matter. Now, my argument is that the hydrogen is split into the three things: the protons, the electrons, and this dark matter, which Shishkin says is condensed torus of the coherent matter layer. It can't go in through here, okay? So it might be that you never need to pour water down here for it to operate. But I would rather that you had control over that. And when I look at the images that I shared subsequently, it may actually be that the device is to a degree converting the material down here into protons to a degree. I don't know. And this needs to be investigated further. But what I'm saying is that any water extra you put down here after this coherent matter layer that's forming this, it would be, in my view, extremely intense when it's operating properly. Would not be able to go through the coherent matter layer. It would just either boil or disassociate on this boundary here. In fact, if you were to come down here, you would either boil or dissociate. And why the way that I think potentially the disassociation is going on, let's say we have some water here in the well, whether it's coming up through groundwater or whether it's actually put in here deliberately, it comes down to the proton in the water having spin. Okay, the oxygen in the water doesn't have spin, but this distortion, this disruption beam is so intense that it is literally ripping the proton out of there, leaving the oxygen nowhere to go except to also be disassociated. So you end up with disassociating the water in a non-thermal, and I've also seen it in a experiment by Alexander Parkhomov that produced excess heat over the course of 225 days, more than 2.14, I think it was, mega electron volts per nickel atom. Although, as I've argued, I think much of that came from not the nickel, but other interactions going on. Okay, so I have to flip the pyramid here because of the way this is working. This is the material here goes into the wormhole and out here. So you're looking at the back side of the action inside the pyramid. So I flip this, and this isn't the correct structure here. It's an approximation in the artwork of Wikipedia. There's a better approximation by Petri, and I have Petri's book, and we'll look at some aspects in there in a little while. But it is this particular shape. So the thing is, what happened with the Parkhomov 225-day reactor, and we'll see this in a little while, is that in that experiment there were two samples. So basically, Alexander Parkhomov, Dr. Alexander Parkhomov, he did this experiment, and he shared parts of the reactor with, I think, 9 different labs, of which or organizations, and the MFMP was one of those. And I had the pleasure of looking at those in Alan Goldwater's at least for the vortex and anti-vortex, these structures, the vortex and anti-vortex, we've seen it so many times from this neon light glancing across the top of the surface. And what is it? I'm going to go there. It is an alpha. Okay. It's an alpha. And I grant it, it's actually quite nicely carved in there. Now, this, I can't remember the name of the person. For some reason, he thinks there's an omega here, right? I don't see it. I see a lot of other stuff that looks a bit damaged along here. But this looks nicely carved into what was the flat surface. Arguably, this could have been done at another time. But I think it probably would have been, I don't know. Anyway, whoever it was thought that they were seeing something new, and there it is. I don't see the omega. The alpha makes sense to me. The alpha makes sense to me. Why does it make sense to me? Well, because if we go back to our previous O-Day presentations and we go to the circle of life here, okay, we have, as you know, the alpha and the omega. And the alpha, i.e. kind of like new life or new material, begins at the end of death. Okay, so once you have destroyed your material in your breaker and it goes all the way through your pyramid or all the way through the ether stream and gets to the point of being born again, okay, over here, then that is where you have your alpha. Okay, so as I showed in the Coptic art here, you have your alpha and omega here with your breaker and your maker or whatever. So I'm therefore arguing that I agree that this is an alpha, and I could accept that whatever was coming in here was being born again, whether that be matter or something else. You take your pick. But this, I believe.
So Bob is extremely technical, so you can tell that this is real, actual science. He's just going over explaining his discoveries and verification that there was transmutations of elements, actual nuclear reactions going on within this structure through the tests that he's currently doing on it with his equipment. I'm just going to play one more section of this, and then we will call her a day. And love you all, and we'll catch you on the next one. But one last bit here.
Is alpha. And so there we go. This is the beginning. So it would be coming in theory, if this was correctly in the place, the point at which the end of death is occurring is literally at this point. Literally at this point. Or of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And if you look at this, you can imagine that you could get a pretty tight seal between here and here, and it just under its own gravity does the seal, and then all you would need, I mean, is you could probably put chicken fat or something, I don't know, on the boundary there, and it would do the seal, and it would just be under gravity. Okay, so quite a wonderful piece of engineering, really. A little bit more issue on the side. It depends whether the door was actually like a wedge shape. If it was a wedge shape and it went into a wedge shaped socket on the sides, then one can imagine that also that would seal. So but it might be sufficient, depending on the production rate of gases, to have that sealing better, but it may not be necessary depending on the rate of the production of gases. Okay, so the thing that I'd like to draw your attention to here, and this is in the 2017 paper in Nature about the first void being discovered, the second new void being discovered above the Grand Gallery. Okay. And here is their image here of the location of the various elements in the pyramid. And so you can see the center line here. The actual line of the Grand Gallery is a little bit off the center. It's a little bit off the center. Okay. And I believe that that is correct. And we know that these things align themselves not in a straight line, as it were. And I'll give you a little bit of random kind of a correlation for that. One is the fact that we know these yin-yang structures. Okay. One is a cone with a pit in it, and one is a pit with a cone in it, right? So this is the breaker. This is the breaker on this side. This is the same as we would imagine is going on this side of the pyramid. It's this is the breaker here, okay? So it's on this side. So this would need to be above this one, if you know what I mean, if we're looking into the page. So therefore, if you're looking at the plan view of the pyramid, then this one is above. And I think, it's more to the east, okay? This is more to the east. This one would be, and you don't need to see it, but it would be more to the west, okay? And therefore, where it dumps the material would be to the west. And that would, for me, explain why the King's Chamber extends into the west under my hypothesis. Okay, so and yeah, that's the different paper there. Okay, so they have some other nice details in this paper. So this, of course, this is the first paper. So at this point, by using their muon technology, they had it in these potential places, but they've said it can be lower and it can also be down, or it can be flat or whatever. But I'm arguing that the position is in a way that it can feed into the upper part of the structure that it needs to feed into. If we go into here, and we go here, and we need our n-1s, and we will go to pyramid inside. So it needs to have the chamber feed. It needs to be above here, and it probably is a mirror image of the Grand Gallery. And it would need to feed the hydrogen into the top n-2 TOR. Okay, so in here. Yeah. And so that's where I predict they will eventually find it is. Where am I going now? Okay. So the interesting thing is, it is literally, this is the elevation, looking at it from, I guess, well, it could be north or south, I guess, this is east-west. So you're looking at it from the south, I guess, through. But you can see this new chamber is directly above, okay? And here it is from south to north, and east to west. So you can see that the new chamber is literally exactly in line, okay? It's exactly in line, which is exactly where it would need to be feeding the sacred geometry structure, okay? All right. So with those two elevations, so this is a plan, and this is a different elevation to the one that we've been looking at. We've been looking at the south-north elevation, not the east-west elevation, and we have not looked at the plan. But the plan makes sense for the logic of what we are doing. The other part is that it's in and out. So we see it's in and out in the actual how it plays out.
All right, sorry, paused it there. I'm going to be ending it on Autodidactic channel and my Crypto Alchemist channel, as well as on Facebooks and Twitter. But I'm going to keep it live on the link that I just posted in the live chat here on my BurnEye Smallers channel. So please do head over and subscribe to all channels, whether you're on Crypto Alchemist, BurnEye, or Autodidactic, to Autodidactic, BurnEye, and my Crypto Alchemist #2 channel. Love you all. Thank you for joining in. This right here is monoatomic gold that was mixed with, it was the pure white monoatomic gold that I then mixed with some crystalline nano gold, and that is why it actually still has the gold color along with it. And it's being, that was the fourth rinse where I dumped the top rinse water out, the very strong colloidal waters that many recommend using for baths and stuff. But anywho, I keep it, I use it for other purposes, but I'm rinsing the salt out, rinsing the toxins out, and you can see how this metamaterial monatomic gold fully fluffs up and then settles down into its small, more condensed, fluffy state, and then produces the colloidal water. And I will also be updating and consuming a very small amount of this actual monatomic gold and giving you my self guinea pig results of consuming some of this golden monoatomic material. Possible meta material, possible positive side effects, hopefully not negative. Hopefully I don't poison myself. Hopefully I don't give myself heavy metal poisonings and do harm. And that is why you should not try this at home, especially if you don't know what you're doing, as it can be just as harmful, if not more harmful than positive, if you're taking the wrong stuff. If it oxidizes, turns diatomic, hydroxides, the rest, that's how you get heavy metal poisoning and die and do extreme damage to yourself. It's no joking matter, but inversely, it seems the opposite is effect of the good monoatomic. Not making any claims. Thank you, YouTube. Love you all. For those that want to continue watching Bob Greenyer's full stream on its own, here's the link one more time, and some bonus material here over on my BurnEye Mind's Third Eye ScienceGuy channel that we will keep this live going on for a little longer, which is now coming in all the live chats right here. Subscriptions, always please subscribe, please like, please share these materials out. It's crucial for all and getting the word out. And let's see here. You can, also, all of everything that's played tonight is on my backup Twitter channel. I've got a recent episode on alchemy with Benjamin Balderson, Odin's Alchemy, very awesome as well. And we're going to be going for the bonus, still live on my channel, the O-Day decoding of Tesla's flower and these other ancient occultic symbols that Bob Greenyer shows are actually energetic, high energy, high technology symbology and usage, and go through in-depthly decoding both Tesla's work and the ancients, and you don't want to miss it. So come over to the BurnEye channel where it will still be playing. I love you all. We'll catch you on the next one. If you're not continuing on, if you are continuing on, see you on the BurnEye channel. One last time, right here. Please do come subscribe. All donations to keep this work going is greatly appreciated. We are funded and supported by all of you beautiful souls. And for those that can only afford a like, share, and watch, thank you for your support, all of you. We love you. We do it for you. Have a good night. Thank you. And like I said, still live on BurnEye, ending on the rest. Catch you on the next one. All right, we are still live, remaining here. Oh, we're also still live on Rumble. So also, if you are on Rumble, you are getting this extra bonus. And yeah, I'm still live on Crypto Alchemist, but it's going to be ending very shortly if you're still on my main channel. So please do come on over and subscribe to the backup BurnEye channel right here. All donations are appreciated. Thank you, everyone, and bless all of you for being here, for sharing, for caring, and for being open-minded and intuitive and doing your own research always. Don't take our words for what we're saying. We're just presenting the information we find interesting, that we believe relevant, and our own opinions, theses change as new evidence comes out as well. So nothing is set in stone like these megalithic ancient buildings are. And that's why they're still here, and we're digging them out and figuring out our past. And I love you all on Crypto Alchemist. Here one last time, the link for the live that shall still be continuing on BurnEye for this Brucey bonus. And also, YouTube, thank you finally monetizing my Crypto Alchemist channel as well as my BurnEye one. And that is it for Crypto Alchemist. It will still be live with some extra Brucey bonus on the BurnEye after this brief little trimmed clip. And we'll keep it on Burnt and Ernie so you can see the monoatomic gold settling. And we'll be right back in one momentos. And for just a little what's going on, we are live on Autodidactic on
So anyway, it's pretty intense.
like literally there's like hundreds, thousands of giant stories, pyramid stories, burials of these elongated skulls. It's these reset, long lost higher civilization on like mega macro scale, like the work you found, Dutch, of like literally. Oh, yeah, that was shorter than I thought. I'm just giving everybody that blue wrench is subbing in that's still live on the BurnEye. You comment on either of my channels, you get that moderator wrench. And BRB. with the bonus.
Tall. They were known for being extremely tall. And now get this. The Galatian people had moved down to Turkey in somewhere pre-Rome time. So this is a standard time frame, right? But pre-Rome time, the Galatians came from Ireland and settled down in the Turkey area. And the red hair thing and the tall people, and they said they were seafaring. This is now in the legend, and that they also spread out other places, which then, of course, fits with every other continent around the world.
So Turkey, this is weird because Turkey is just above Assyria, right? So if you take Assyria, which is the old name for Britain, was called Albany or Albion at one point. So that name comes from in 1650 BC, an Assyrian king decided to fucking leave Assyria and go sail somewhere else, and he went to Britain, which is why they named the place after him. But if you go into mythology, Albion was actually a giant whose corpse is Britain itself. Like, he died and we're living on his back, right? So you take the two things into, with a pinch of salt, and you mix them together. Perhaps, like you say, if Turkey was covered by these ginger giants, perhaps Assyria was also, and perhaps he's the person that's gone over to Britain to create this race of giants. Again, if you look at Gog Magog, who is the apparent last giant to be killed in Britain by Brutus when he arrived there. Welsh folklore will show you that Britain was previously inhabited by giants. Well, you'll see that he's depicted as a ginger, tall-haired Pictish man, Picts resembling Tartarians, but he's a giant ginger man who is killed before humans can move into Britain. So don't you think that connection between Turkey apparently being inhabited by tall ginger people, then Assyria, just below Asia Minor, which was Turkey at the time, apparently has Albion, who comes over with giants, and then Gog Magog, one of his descendants, is killed, and he's a tall ginger giant.
We cannot overlook that. You're on to something huge here, guys. This is all live, just so you know this.
Right. And then on Crypto Alchemist, there we go. We're ended.
If I offer it to you,
you can watch BurnEye go the gold sink down, and as promised, more Bob Greenyer explaining ancient symbols, ancient tech, confirming it all.
1935. So this is the press photo, and the part that is left undecoded, as far as I'm concerned, is the foot of this flower stand, this vase. The vase, as I've said before, has this Vesica Pisces, and this is holding a flower in the area where the soil would contain the something to provide life, and the band around this lampshade, I have argued, is equivalent to this Coptic Christian art, going from Alpha to Omega. So this is in the land of the living, and this is the overall Coptic Christian art here, with the two angels, the angel of life and the angel of death, the Alpha and Omega, and you have your Chi Rho, your Christ center in the middle of this structure. And the presentation that this came from was called Ode Circle of Life, so you can go and have a look at that. And yes, it's the bottom of this flower pot, which we want to try and decipher today. Okay, so I'm going to do that. First, I'm going to go through a whole bunch of images that led me to understand this particular structure, or come to the conclusion that this structure was relevant. And so some of the early ones were in the lion experiment. And this was on the outside of the lion. And so this is on the surface of the fused quartz. And it was definitely, to me, a macro structure. It's several centimeters or a couple of centimeters, or at least 12 millimeters across. It's quite large relative to an atom, I would say. And it's got substructures in there that are self-similar. And it looked like a magnetohydrodynamic structure. It was then therefore no surprise sometime later where in ultra experiments we observed these kinds of things, which turns out have the exact ratios of the yin-yang. And when other experiments were conducted by myself, we came up with this, where we had on one side, there was material being desynthesized, and so it would appear the aluminium has lost an oxygen and become boron here, and over here the aluminium has gained an oxygen and become calcium over on this side. There's no boron here, and there is no calcium on this side. And this is a classic bar spiral galaxy type structure, and we've tried to show how that might occur using this structure in the 3D sense. Anyway, so this is if you go back to here, this is a pit with a cone in it, and this is a cone with a pit in it. In fact, that gives you this kind of structure. However, this one's actually flipped. This is a cone with a pit in it, and this is a pit with a kind of cone, except that it's been kind of eaten away. Okay, so those are kind of like, this is a strict surface structure in the lion reactor that I observed. This is kind of 3D, but impressed upon a surface, as is this. This is a flat steel vibrator plate from Roche and Amasa, and you can see very clearly we have these extreme points in the center of this overall figure of 8 kind of structure here. Now, in this Amasa, sorry, that was the Amasa. In this ultra experiment that I conducted, this is using the Dynalite microscope, and we have the overall OM shape here. Now, this structure to me looks a lot like a monkey, like a macaque or something, not a macaque, a gibbon or something. I don't know. It looks like a monkey to me. Looks kind of nose down here, but it has this thing sweeping up into here and round. Anyway, so it's in these kind of experiments where you start to see something down in this lower section down here. And in this Henk urine Vega experiment, this is on the fused quartz outside, I observed this caduceus beam coming down where the vortex has got this disruption beam, and it goes up to a point, and we've discussed this in the past, and it's kind of like offset as the way that the Egyptians had, that the part below the loop of the Ankh, this sort of T shape here, is the key to all hidden knowledge, and I would agree with that. And if we look at the Ankh, it's normally associated with Sothic triangle, and if I shift over to the right here, there's the Ankh with the Sothic triangle. I believe that the Sothic triangle is here, and this little notch that's taken out of it is the disruption zone. So if you see that in respect of this, and if you see that in respect of this, and you see that in respect of this, and you see that in respect of this, then you can see this disruption zone here. And so that is where I sort of, went with that. And then I started looking at, historical art, religious art, and so forth. And that's how
I came to study Coptic art, and that led me to see this particular piece of Coptic art. And then having published that, or the previous piece of Coptic art that I was discussing, someone sent me this image and said, you know, I think there's something going on here. And I actually think this part of the Vesica Pisces going up to the this part of the Vesica Pisces coming up to about here, as is in that bowl of the flower pot. I think that is essentially the Holy Grail, because the spirit energy goes into here. Okay, so that being put to one side, I you know, as I said, I've been looking to see if there are any correlation between other pre sort of history, or should we say ancient works. And one thing that I came across was Beowulf, which according to one writer, this could be around AD 550. Actually, it doesn't really matter. The interesting thing is that this art that is kind of associated with the Vikings from Sweden and Norway and Gotland specifically is very interesting to me. So if you remember what I was saying in the case of here, this is the alpha, and this is the beginning after the end of death. And so life is through here, life is through here in his picture, and it's behind where you can't see it, which is the death. And the omega at the end here is at the end of life. And so this is one life kind of vector going on here. And when I saw this, I recognized several things pretty much immediately. And so if we go into that image more closely, apparently this is a sun wheel according to conventional thinking. I actually think it's a coherence of spirit energy, or one might say dark matter, but anyway, spirit energy coherence, and I will show my argument for that. I think that this is effectively the alpha in this drawing, and this is the omega. And if we go in closer, we see the alpha and the omega. And you can see there are 6 vortices around here, double vortices, and in the center, you've got a quad stellium. Okay, and that, my friends, that quad stellium is the same as the quad stellium that's at the bottom of the flower pot there. Okay, so now the other thing is that leads me to believe that this is the alpha and this is the omega, is that we have a Viking burial boat here. This is what I am interpreting this as, because we don't see many people here, and there doesn't appear to be anyone alive on here. It does look like it's got oars, but anyway, it seems to be rowing in this direction, although you could argue that the oars are going to push back this way. No, I think it's going in this direction, and therefore, to me, this is from birth to death. Birth to death, and that would make sense if it's going in this direction, because it would be death at this point. And so a Viking burial boat, which looks something like this one in Oslo in Norway. This is the Usberg ship, and this is talking about another one, that a Viking burial barge being dug up here, and they're worried about it. So this is a Viking burial barge. So I think that's what is going on here. And if we look at the overall image, I see this as being a kind of flipped structure of the what's going on in the pyramid. And we will talk to that. Now, there are other images in Gotland and in this family of art, Viking art, and we can have a look at one of those here. And again, this is a quad stellium,
and it has these 5 spots in a circle. That's one of the alchemical symbols for gold. That just happens to be the case. And you can see that we've got the Christ center here also. Now, this is the point at which the 4 struts are coming up to join onto the mid tit, because in our pyramid, our breaker is on the right and our maker is on the left. And
I'm muted. All right. Good thing I caught myself. Thank you so much for the support, John, and everybody being here, donating. Your generosity. Wouldn't be able to do this without all of you. And thank you for making it possible. Just wanted to pause here and show this toroidal ancient Viking symbol. Bob's pointing out that looks like both a PoE rodent coil as well as one of Da Vinci's drawings that turns out to be a overbalance over Unity wheel as well. Full link is posted in the live chat a little bit back, as well as on my Twitters. I'm going to quickly switch it over for one extra bonus for all you beautiful souls here today. A little bit more of Terry Carter and Terry Carter's epic, amazing research, discoveries, treasure hunting, and truth finding in Nevada, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, and California, maybe? Anywho, the west of U.S. and all the giants and Spanish treasure and the
Manor Street, throw rocks at that.
Oh my goodness, the what was Templar? There we go. The Templar treasures, the Spanish treasures, and the giants and mound treasures. And here's one more of his newer videos. We're gonna check it out. Thanks for being here for the bonus. It is a truth. Very inspired also by the emerald tablet up here. Hoping it has something to do with this.
That person loves you so much, but you do have to like.
Saying that they know where almost all of this stuff is, but it's being guarded and protected, and they can't get to it. This is a very advanced city from the deep past, and it is being guarded by ancient machines.
So I'm with James here, and I'm headed down to Arizona. He says, stop by and he'd feed me dinner. So I'm stopping by and he's going to feed me dinner. But I want to get a story out of him. James deals with a lot of different things that I really don't know about in that, but he's telling me a little bit about some Aztec treasure and things like that, and that's right up my alley. And so I'm not sure exactly where James is going to take this, but with that, James, take it away.
Okay, so my name's James, and basically, it's a little. Let me see, where should I start off here?
Start right where you just tell me what you did for a living and how you learned some of this stuff.
Okay, so I used to work for the movie industry, and I was on sets all day long. And in my job, I had a lot of downtime, so I had a lot of free time, so I could read, I could do whatever I wanted. I could snoop around the sets, I could snoop around the studios, I talked to actors, producers, everybody you could think of. I've been around a lot of people. And in the process of doing this, I met secret society members like Freemasons and other secret societies. People call them Illuminati and all this stuff. They have different names for them, but all these groups really do exist. And they control a lot of things in the movie industry, including who's on TV, who the stars are, what roles they get. They control what they say. They control their lifestyles. They will find these people as small children and actually groom them for their entire life, and they control them. And I've met these people. I've met their children. I met like people in very weird groups that are connected to these very powerful people. And I started hearing a lot of rumors and stories going around about a lot of things that people are very interested in, including your little Aztec treasure. So I'm going to get to that.
So that's what interests me is the Aztec treasure. So if you've heard something about that, I want to know what you've heard.
Okay. So the Aztec treasure is real, totally real. And people and secret societies have been looking for this for thousands of years. They've had ancient maps that have led them directly to this country, to specific locations. And I mean, I could show you these maps. I mean, maybe there's some way we can show them somehow. But I mean, there's maps, there's a lot of stuff, and these secret societies have been looking for this Aztec treasure. And a lot of this is buried out in the deserts in the United States. And this is going to lead to what Area 51 is really there for, because it has nothing to do with what you're told. I mean, they've made up this whole huge story about aliens and all this stuff to protect this area, but Area 51 was put where it was because it's actually hiding an ancient underground city that the Aztec used to speak of. I mean, the Aztecs speak of 7 of these, and this is one of these areas. And the Native Americans speak of these in their legends, and like they call the one in Death Valley Shinava. I think that's how they pronounce it. And that's really an underground city in Death Valley, and the government found this in the 1930s. I write all about this. I have a personal Facebook group. I'm going to plug myself here, I'm sorry. But it's a private group. It's called Esoteric Essays. And I've written a bunch of articles, essays about a lot of this stuff and what I've connected, because I followed petroglyph trails. I mean, I had access to a lot of stuff when I was working in this industry, and a lot of people. I mean, there's people that actually have millions and millions of dollars of ancient scrolls, secret esoteric books that are highly coveted and guarded because of what they say in these things. And I mean, I personally know some of these people, and I mean, I have access to a lot of things. So I started investigating. I mean, I drove all across this country for, man, I must have put in almost 50,000 miles crisscrossing the country. I sold everything. I gave up my entire life. I basically had a camper and a van at one point. And I mean, I've crisscrossed the country looking at all these places. I found hidden sites that they won't tell you about. I mean, they completely have wiped some of the stuff off the face of the book in order to keep this stuff secret and hidden. They put Hoover Dam where they did and flooded the area to hide it. Some ruins and some petroglyphs that led right to Area 51, Death Valley, and the Grand Canyon. There's an ancient city that's under the Grand Canyon as well. And this was found in the 1910 by a man named G.E. Kincaid. And the Smithsonian covered all this up. And I know a lot of your viewers know some of this, but I mean, I've spent a lot of time piecing this together, and I've driven a lot of, there's stuff in Tennessee, there's Mayan ruins all over the place. There's a lot of hidden things. And I mean, I've really stepped on some toes doing this. I know there's a lot of secret society stuff that I'm sort of holding back right now, but I'm trying to actually.
So you're saying that the secret societies knows where this stuff is, or they're trying to find this stuff, and they talk to you about it, and so you got copies of some of the maps, some of what their knowledge is. Is that what you're saying? I'm
saying that they know where almost all of this stuff is, but it's being guarded and protected, and they can't get to it.
What do you mean guarded and protected?
Okay, these ancient cities are from civilizations that were super advanced, and they're from thousands and thousands of years ago. And this is talked about in the Bible. This is talked about in the Zohar. This is talked about in, I mean, I can name off a lot of stuff that you can get information from where you don't need secrets. And it's clearly in there for people to read, but it's hard to understand, and they try to hide it. And so then they do blatantly edited out stuff. Like, they've edited books out of the Bible. They've edited out the stuff about the giants out of the Bible. They edit a lot of stuff out, so nothing makes sense. Because the giants are connected to this too. We call them Bigfoot today. But the government knows that there are remnants of what we used to call giants. And the Native Americans know about these. They actually think they killed the last remaining group of giants in Lovelock, Nevada. I've been to the cave. I've actually tried to get through and see some of the artifacts from the cave, and so there's like 2 highly classified boxes that they won't let you see. So they'll let you see all the other boxes, but if you ask for those 2, they'll tell you, no, this is classified. You can't see these. Because that has some of the skulls from the giants in it and some of this other stuff, but they won't let you see this stuff. But they've hidden all this. But the giants are living in these underground cavern systems that lead to these cities. And the government's hiding that. I mean, this is in the Bible and stuff too. I mean, it says that we would see this stuff reemerge from our past, but nobody understands what they're reading. And then we have our totally occult-driven media that is like trying to hide everything from everybody. But I mean, the Templars, this involves the Templars. This involves what was at Oak Island, but it was moved a long time ago. This has to do with where Montezuma is. This has to do with Cleopatra, Mark Antony, and them bringing Alexander the Great's remains here when they fled from Egypt, because they didn't die there. She was the pharaoh and the head of the mystery schools. So she had all of the Egyptian writings that told them exactly what was in the United States. So they knew all about this. That's where they fled to. And if you really get to some of the hidden, like Mayan stuff and Aztec stuff, there's mentions of like these people coming thousands of years ago that totally fit Cleopatra and Mark Antony. They called her like the daughter of the sun and the Commodore or something. I mean, there's even legends from these people about them coming here. There's evidence about them all over the place. So I'm saying
So when you're talking Cleopatra, Mark Antony, are you talking about Burroughs Cave in Illinois? Or are you talking something else, or what are you talking?
I know what you're talking about with this cave. Well, I can't remember the guy's name who was really. He has a YouTube channel about this too.
Harry Hubbard.
Yeah, that guy. He seems very intelligent too, and he's onto something. But I say that's not where he will ever find this. This is in a different place, and they know what this city really is. They knew how to get into the city, and their tomb is in the city, and it's not over there. And no one. And these things are protected. I'm saying.
So when you're talking in the city, you're talking about in one of these underground caverns.
In the cities, there's actual like they've made a movie that sort of hints at this. And it's called National Treasure. And you see this movie, and they show this treasure that is like beyond belief with like these giant gold buildings and stuff. This treasure makes that look like child's play. And this is way bigger than anybody can imagine. And it's deep underground. It's impossible for anybody to get to. But I'm telling you, there's ancient technology from, I don't care if you want to call it Atlantis. I don't care if you want to call it Hyperborea, Lemuria, Mu, whatever name you want to use. Aztlan, because that's the one the Aztecs used. This is a very advanced city from the deep, deep past, and it is being guarded by ancient machines in some of these areas. And we have myths and legends that talk about these machines, and we called them things like skinwalkers. And now we call some of them orbs and UFOs and things like this. And a lot of these machines they're machines from our deep past that have been functioning and guarding certain areas for a long time. And these secret societies totally believe this too. I mean, there's connections. I'll talk more about some of this later if I'm given them more of a chance. But I mean.
So you're saying that Aztlan or the Aztec treasure is under Area 51? Is that what you're saying? And this information is given to you by...
Okay, no, that's not what I'm saying. Okay. I'm saying what is under Area 51 is part of one of these ancient underground cities. And they found, okay, Everybody, I don't know if you know who Bob Lazar is. I'm going to be very quick. Bob Lazar is the guy that they fed information to about aliens from a planet called Zeta Reticuli. And they said that they found these craft and they
She's like, what?
4:20 a.m. in Alberta right now, so it's 4:20. Just going to take a 4:20 break, and just had to pause it quickly to say this guy's testimony so far is so bang on and so 100% collaborating everything I've already researched and figured out and concluded on my own. This is epic. Let's let it continue. I'm probably going to let it play in full.
They came from here and they needed him and all these people to reverse engineer them. And he came out and told everybody this. And they tried to destroy this man's life. They said he never worked for them. And this has been all proven that this is true. They really tried to do this to this man. Except if you go watch all of his interviews, even in one of his interviews, he's asked, do you really believe this alien story? And he says, I don't know. That's what they told me. Or something like this. And he said, I overheard people talking one time saying that there was an archaeological dig out near Groom Lake and S4 a long time ago where they really found these craft. And I'm telling you that is where they really found these craft, in one of these underground cities. You have to look at it like this is like an advanced military facility from the past. And it's buried underground. There's been catastrophes. There's the Aztec and the Native Americans lived in these areas. They talk about these things openly. We don't believe them. That's our problem. That's not theirs. I respect these people's stories. I respect everything about them. I don't go on their land. I try to be very respectful to everything they believe. We don't believe them. They've been telling us this for a long time. I'm saying that these places are guarded by these ancient machines. And that's what the skinwalkers are. And they've been guarding these places for a long time. And they've told people about this. They won't go to these areas. They're scared to death. They won't even talk about them because they know there's something there. So, okay, that's what Skinwalker Ranch is all really about. They show you on the TV show how their phones get scanned, how they're trying an experiment, and all of a sudden, boom, everything doesn't work. And they can totally see that something electronic is screwing with them. And then they've even caught the little orbs on the TV where the cow falls over and dies. I mean, some of this I actually believe it's totally true. I mean, they're showing you some of this, but they're trying to make you just think it's aliens. They don't want you even thinking, oh, is this a machine from the time we called Atlantis? That's what they're hiding. And I'm telling you, I think they know this. I know they know this, but only very few people know this. So they're hiding all this.
So I got to ask you, because do I want to say this? I don't want to say this, but I'm interested in Montezuma's treasure. So I want to know, did these people, did they know where this is, or they're just searching up for it themselves, these people that you're talking to? Or, and if so, where do you think it is? Where did they tell you it is? And
okay, so the thing is, you can see where this is if you have the right technology. You can't hide it, especially this amount of gold. This is not like $22 billion worth of gold, like the one treasure I told you they found under another ancient site. That's a little treasure. This is magnitudes far beyond anything you could ever imagine. And this will show up. So when they have the military has satellites. This is also how Russia knows about this thing. They have satellites, and they know where all the gold is on the planet. And there's lots of gold mines in this country that are highly guarded and protected by people like the Rand Corporation. There's one out in the Antelope Valley. And there's other companies, then they're just sitting there on this gold because they don't need it for anything right now. It's just like in the ground, it's in the bank. And when they need it, it's there. So they can see all of this with the satellites and the technology. I mean, they have technology that you will not believe. I mean, they really have stuff that you won't believe. I'm trying not to go off in the tangent because this is for a certain audience. Except, so they know where it is. They can see it. They know where the treasures are that are like in China, underneath the emperor's tomb. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
They know what's under all of these things. They can tell because they have satellite systems. And the Russians know this too. And there's a weird connection to the Russians because the Russians were talking about what they called orphan mines a long time ago when Donald Trump was getting elected. And this has to do with these ancient gold mines. And they call them orphan mines because they've been closed and they're orphans, they're abandoned. But they're not really abandoned. They're being sort of sat on. And the Russians know all about these because they can see from their satellites where all of the huge giant gold deposits are. So the Russians know exactly where this treasure is. The Chinese know exactly where this treasure is. And our government knows exactly where this treasure is. And it's all being controlled and manipulated by secret societies. And this goes way back to like the Templars and way before this stuff. This is all connected to that stuff. That's why they brought the treasures from the Holy Land here. And they were at like places like Oak Island and stuff, and then stuff got moved and spirited in different places. And then later on, other secret societies came and started digging around because they had ancient records that led them to these places, but it was already moved. But I mean, the Freemasons spent millions and millions of dollars with a soon-to-be president searching for a lot of this stuff that was in Oak Island. That's been moved. And I'm telling you, this is all, a lot of this stuff is all in the same location. And I didn't say I know where this is. I'm just being very careful with what I say because I would really like to speak to some very friendly Native Americans that would make this a lot easier. And I don't want to just go tromping on anybody's land. And I don't claim this is not like my treasure. I want to go see something and do something. And I know where it is. And it's just very difficult to do at the present time because I'm very watched doing this. I mean, I've really outed the government with what they're hiding under Area 51. And you can read what I've written on my site. And it goes into more detail. I'm actually willing to say more, but I'm trying to make this a shorter video and just give some of the basics here.
So some people are going to see this and say, "Man, you're not giving us nothing, and you're nuts." And
I know that.
And they're gonna ridicule you. I
know that.
And some people are going to say, "Man, well, tell us more." And so.
I'm still saying I know where this is, and I will bring you there when it happens. And I mean, I'm holding back a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm really worried because I mean, I live right next to Area 51 for a reason. I mean, I've been searching. I've been doing this for like 20 years. I've dedicated everything. I mean, I have nothing but this. I know what I'm doing.
What do you
and
mean?
I know and I have some very strong ties to, I know people don't want to believe it, but I mean, I know a lot of stuff about why some of these actors show up dead and why they show up missing and who killed who. And I mean, I've heard a lot of crazy things at work and I paid attention. That's what I did. I had 20 to 18 hours a day to sit there and watch. I mean, like I'm telling you, the whole media is totally controlled. I mean, everything is scripted, word for word.
So
it's all controlled. These are what our wars have been over. Really, they have. Our wars have been over all of this stuff, and they're all looking for this ancient technology. That's why we went into Iraq, because that's also, okay, people don't understand why people like ISIS were destroying all of the ancient ruins.
Why?
That's because the first thing that they did when they went into Iraq, first they went to one of the ziggurats of Ur, and they totally surrounded that place. And then they went to all of the museums and immediately, just like Hitler, immediately went to all of the museums and took everything that they can from ancient ruins, cuneiform writings. They took everything, they photographed it, they didn't leave much. So then, like, once we abandoned these people, after we stole their oil and all their ancient, I mean, there's really some weird rumors about what they really found under some of these ancient ruins. And you can, I mean, there's really some weird rumors out there. And that's what this is about. They're looking for this, the same thing Hitler was looking for. Hitler was very honest about all this, talking about they were the master race from Atlantis. They never talked about aliens. The alien stuff is like propaganda that's been put into this from the government. And this all centers around this huge treasure that they know where it is. They know there's technology there. If you really know the legends of this treasure, this is supposed to belong to an Atlantean god named the Quetzalcoatl. And this was supposedly through history a different being.
So wait a minute. You're saying the Atlantean god Quetzalcoatl, but that was the Aztec god.
Well, because that's where he supposedly have come from. And the Aztec has mistaken this person with advanced technology as a god, because he supposedly flew over here in like a craft. Like what I'm saying was found under Area 51. They found what the Hindus have a book called the Mahabharata, where they talk all about this stuff and the ancient cities under the ground and the wars that happened and the advanced weapons and flying machines. And they called UFOs back in the day Vimanas. So sometimes I call UFO Vimana because that's what it really is. It's these machines from the past. And now they're totally trying to wipe this out of history. They don't want anybody to know about what stuff is, because it gives them a lot of control. They can control people. They can control your mind. They can do a lot of crazy things with this technology. It's why people start hearing voices in their head. And like you'll hear the embassy people say that they're hearing ringing in their ears and they're getting brain damage and stuff. That's because these countries are using advanced weapons that we know nothing about on all these people. And a lot of these weapons came from these ancient sites. And that's what was really found under Area 51 in the 30s, was one of these like ancient bases with advanced machines in them. And they had to cover it up. So they created a new border for Death Valley, and minus the part that was in Nevada. And then they plopped a military base. Well, first it wasn't even a military base. They just had it hidden and they were investigating it. And then they've realized how big this was. So they plopped a base on it, and it was totally secret. And only the need to know people even went out there. And then people started talking about alien crafts and stuff. So then they're like, okay, we're going to throw this in with the UFO stuff. Because I also say this is what happened in Roswell. Was the Roswell craft was one of these, it's like an Atlantean drone being autopiloted, and it crashed. So the government comes in and picks these things up, and then they spirited it away. And then they're like, they know what this is, because I'm telling you, secret societies have been looking for Atlantis and its ruins and its ancient machines for hundreds and hundreds of years. That's why this whole country was founded. This country was going to be called New Atlantis at one point. I mean, that's what all of this is really about.
So you're saying that these secret societies, these groups, these governments knows where Montezuma's treasure, let's call it, is. But you're saying that there's ancient technology there too, and it's guarded, or they're afraid to go after.
Yeah, it's guarded.
Or what's it guarded?
Even if you like get to like the super like deep Aztec stuff, that I mean, the church destroyed a lot of this. There's a lot of this actually in the Vatican, and so they destroyed as much as they possibly could, saying that this was like all paganism and that, and in a way it sort of is. But in these writings it talks about this is why America was even named America, was based on this Quetzalcoatl being named Amaru in Turkey. And then these people believe that this being is special and like a god on earth almost, and it would be here, it would do certain things, die, boom, pop up somewhere else. They'd find it, just sort of almost like the Dalai Lama, I think it is, who they'd go after when he dies. That's what like the Aztec and all these people believed of this being. So it's been named from Amaru to Viracocha to the Quetzalcoatl, and this continues. So they've had this story about this being, the Aztec. They totally believe this. And so do some secret societies, but they call this being something totally different. There's a church that calls this being Jesus, and that's the Mormon church. And then you have a secret society that calls this being Lucifer. So this is all like really tied into the Bible and what they're hiding from all of these religions. There's a lot into all this, but that's also how we get like weird legends of people like Thor and Zeus and Odin. I'm telling you, these things were real at one point. These are Atlantean beings from a long time ago. They had like advanced body armor, kind of like Iron Man suits that make them, I say this is from angels. Other people say the aliens gave them technology. And secret societies say what I say. I mean, they're not fooled by the alien stuff because they're creating the alien stuff to confuse everybody. So all this is tied into this, and I'm telling you, all their like little secrets that they are going to be very angry that I'm revealing. But so yes, I say they know where this stuff is because they can see it, but they can't get near it, and they know they can't get near it, and it's been hidden and guarded for this Quetzalcoatl.
Okay, so the Aztec stuff. So they took it back to their ancient homeland. Did they take treasures they had, or they took? Tell me about what you think's there, and wherever this ancient treasure of the Aztec is, and what's there.
Thank you for this, because this has been like people have been confused about this for a long time. The rumor, what people have always been told, is that the Aztec, when they were being attacked by Hernan Cortez, and they were being attacked, and for their treasures, for their ancient writings. So the rumor is Montezuma had a bunch of his runners take a bunch of this treasure in their ancient writings back to their homeland of Aztlan. And that's in the western part of the United States. They did take some of the stuff back. They took back a bunch of treasures, a bunch of ancient writings, and stuff that was important to them at the time, and stuff that was important to Montezuma. But there is a massive treasure that was already here. These people were here thousands of years prior, and they had to flee. So they did not take all of the treasure that was there and all these advanced machines and stuff. They didn't even know what the machines were. And they knew sort of about gold, shiny stuff, but they had no use for this stuff. They were leaving this area a long time ago, and that's what led them to Mexico. And then when the Spanish came to Mexico thousands of years later, looking for all this treasure, they took some back with these ancient writings that they had, because they had found more treasure and more ancient writings in the pyramids in Mexico where they settled. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not
so
losing.
You're saying that they didn't mine the gold, make all these.
Yeah, they don't.
They found them there in Mexico area,
Yes.
and. Okay.
Yeah, they had no care in the world for gold or any of this stuff, really. They might have had some fascination with some things like shiny crystals and stuff like that, but like gold, they didn't care about gold. They didn't have anything to do with gold. But when they came to Mexico, there's pyramids all over Mexico. There were ancient ruins and underground cities.
So you're saying these pyramids were already there? They wasn't built by the Mayans?
Yeah, no.
The Aztecs.
That is all remnants from this lost civilization. That was just more intact. They were originally in North America, and they were living underground. And then there was a catastrophe that happened again later on that made them flee, and they came to Mexico. And when they were in Mexico, they found more pyramids in Tenochtitlan. That's modern-day Mexico City. This is where they moved in. And they were like, this is perfect. There's big, giant buildings, big structures. We'll live right here. So they set up camp there and lived there for thousands of years until the Spaniards came. And so when they were in Mexico, they found even more treasures and more ancient writings from the people who originally built this stuff thousands and thousands of years ago. And they found this stuff, and they were curious about it, but they didn't know what this stuff was at all. But the Spaniards did, because they know what this stuff is. They know about the ancient cities. They know about Atlantis. They know about all that. They've had writings about this, so they've been searching for it. So now they're coming to Mexico looking for this stuff. So then the Aztecs spirit away some of this stuff because it must be important. The Spaniards want it, but they took their precious writings. They had a belief system of their own. So they took all that with them too and took it back to Aztlan. That's in, like I said, part of it's under Area 51, part of it is in totally under Utah, part of it's in New Mexico. There's a lot. Part of it's in Arizona. They brought it back here to a special place that's very guarded.
So they brought it back to a place that's guarded, but if it's guarded, how did they bring it back?
That's what I'm saying. This ties into what they believed is their god, their ancient god that's supposed to come back and get this. I'm saying there's truth to this. I mean, this is in the Bible too. This really does connect to the Bible and lots of other religions and what they believe. So they brought this stuff back and they deposited it back into this very ancient secured city system. And then this technology said, okay, they can bring it back. It's like it's watching what's going on this whole time. I'm saying this technology is looking for special souls, looking for people that are connected to this stuff. And these secret societies really believe this. This is what these bloodlines are that they talk about. And they trace bloodlines for who they think are special people. I mean, it's very convoluted and very difficult to explain. I mean, hopefully I'm doing a good enough job doing it. I mean... So back, you mentioned that Nixon was trying to get the treasure at Victoria Peak, but I heard it was Johnson, but you're saying it was Nixon? Yeah, this is Richard Nixon. And he had a lot to do. This really led to his impeachment. And
so those that don't know about Victoria Peak, tell me just a quick overview and then tell me what happened.
Okay, there's like this weird story about an old man named Doc Noss that found a treasure, a bunch of gold bars under this mountain called Victoria Peak next to the White Sand Missile Range. I think that's the right one. But remember, it's right next to a missile range and United States base. That's there for a reason. But he found this gold, and then it basically, he got some gold bars out. He hid them. He told people that he found this. He's like, pretty sure he filed a claim. And then the government sort of got involved in this and ended up closing off the area and extending the base to cover this peak. So now no one can get to it. And so they've been fighting over this for a long time. And then I'm telling you, the government went in and took the gold because they know that this has ties to the Aztec and this lost treasure. And this guy magically found this gold. What I'm saying is this will happen. The Aztec were bringing some of this stuff from Mexico up here. And they got to New Mexico and they deposited it in this cavern system because they know all about these. Because the cavern systems they connect North America to South America. And you used to be able to traverse this with no problem, but it's been collapsing and destroying itself, so it's a lot harder to do this. But the Aztec deposited this in this area, and they were trying to hide it, and they were being pursued by the Spanish. And the Spanish caught them and killed them and found this treasure, melted it down, put it in the gold bar form, and hid it in this Victoria Peak, and they were going to come back and get it. Except something happened and they didn't come back and get it. So they were probably killed by other people or Aztecs. So now this stuff's been sitting there. There's even rumors that they found like Spanish like weapons and armor and stuff. So you can tell that the Spanish were here. So they found this. I'm saying they found the Aztec, found this stuff, melted it down, hid it, and then somehow nobody found it. And it was left there. And this little old man found it. And this is connected to a little tiny portion of the Aztec treasure. And the government swooped in, closed it off. They put this on Unsolved Mysteries, a couple TV shows, and they try to make it sound all crazy. But the government took it. They even have what they call the Black Eagle Fund. And this is a fund that the government uses to hide this stuff. And they also did this with Yoshimida's treasure. They found that in the Philippines. I think it was McCarthy. They called him the Supreme Commander and gave him complete control over the Philippines after the war. And that's what he did. That was his sole job, was to find Yamashita's treasure. And they found it. They took that treasure and put it into this Black Eagle Fund group. And this has been that was like $400 million, or even billions, $400 billion. There's some crazy amount of money. So basically, our government found that treasure and put it in this fund. So they stole all the treasure from all the people from World War II. We took it. They funded our wars and stuff for the next like 30 years with this money. But some of the Victoria Peak treasure money ended up in that fund too. All of it was supposed to go there, but it didn't all go there. And Richard Nixon and some of his little cronies stole a lot of money and gold. And then
So it was Nixon. Johnson didn't have anything to do with that.
I can't say for sure about that, but I know Richard Nixon did. And this ties all the way down to a theft years later in a little strip mall bank that was robbed sort of by San Diego. And Richard Nixon had millions and millions of dollars in this bank. And this was like some of the only stuff stolen out of there. And it's like, that's on Unsolved Mysteries or something too, because they're like, why did somebody break into this place? But they were stealing like some of Richard Nixon's like hidden booty. And I actually think this might be like the Mexican government that did this, because they know all about this. They've been trying to get this land back for a long time, and they've tried to infiltrate the government in California with politicians, and there's a lot of secret society stuff going on in the Mexican world of this that nobody really knows about at all in this country. So they've been trying to desperately get this back too. So I'm thinking maybe the Mexican mafia and that might have had something to do with stealing this gold back from Richard Nixon that he stole, because this is really part of this treasure. And there are people that have been searching for this for a long time. And I got on a little tangent again, but that's how this ties into Victoria Peak. Victoria Peak is part of this treasure. A little bit of it that was sort of left out on a little secret cache.
Well, that's it, James. Man, I appreciate you for sharing your knowledge with us, and that's our wrap.
Thank you.
All right, so I just posted the link for the full episode here on Terry Carter's channel. It is almost 5 a.m. in Alberta here, very late. Thank you everybody for being here. One very last Brucey bonus for you, so we'll take the video to exactly 4 hours long, because I love you all, and it's just some epic stuff here, and just a demonstration of the endless research and work and dedication Terry Carter has to these topics and exposing the truth. And the episode that just finished playing, I believe those stories are just so on point and resonate with so many other research evidences I've come across, including what he was referring to, the Philippines golden treasures that the Americans were pursuing after World War II, that the Japanese had taken and stolen a large portion of during the active war of World War II, and that such people in the quote unquote white hat conspiracy world, Ben Fulford speaks quite often of that same treasure out of Asia there in the Philippines, and what the White Dragons, Black Lotus, these different Asiatic secret societies are still in control of it. And that's a whole other rabbit hole, but just interesting to hear others confirm and tell of these stories. And that I also believe parallelly that why the Grand Canyon Pyramid Complex is so locked down, and the story of Kincaid's expedition into it, is that, as he was also stating, that there's these way larger stashes of pre-cataclysm gold archives, like the Crespi collection down in Ecuador, and then what I believe is still probably within the Grand Canyon Pyramid complexes that they protect, no-fly zone, escorted trips only that have to be registered, booked over a year in advance to hike through there. It's insane how locked down the Grand Canyon truly is, but it's because most likely that there are these ridiculous gold reserves and artifact reserves and treasuries within these underground ruins and lost civilization cities. And the last part being in the Grand Canyon complex, there is, in fact, one giant pyramid temple called Solomon's Temple, and Solomon's mines most likely also are within the walls of the overall Grand Canyon somewhere. And on that note, here is your extra special duper, super duper Brucey bonus part 2. Love you all. Enjoy. If it will load, I guess. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Is it going to work? Do you get the extra bonus? Oh, is it, no, it's not working. It's a rejection. Okay. On that note, never mind. It's over. It's come to an end. 3 hours, 45 minutes in. Love you all. Catch you on the next one. Ta-ta.